Sup, everybody? Welcome to Changing of the Hip Hop Guards. I'm the journalist Sincere. That's my partner, Uncle E. And tonight we have the pleasure of joining us, MC, inspirational speaker, Arthur, as well as leader, Antoinette. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, like I said earlier, we're going to take it back and then work our way up. You have a lot going on this year. For those who may not know, can you tell everybody where you were born and raised?
I was actually born in Harlem, New York, and I was raised in the Bronx, New York.
Can you take us back to a day in the life, Antoinette, teenage years, New York?
Okay, if I take you back, I'm going to probably take you back to when I was in high school, but I can go back a little further, actually.
High school is good.
Okay, high school. So, a day in the life of Antoinette in high school. I loved hip hop music. I mean, that was my life. So, I was in a group at that time called the Feminine Force. It was myself, another young lady named Antoinette also, and a girl named Sharon who did the beatbox because, as you know, back then the beatbox was the thing that we did. So, or we banged on cars or tables, right?
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I would go to school, but my life was just hip hop. We would find people, we would battle, other people. I would battle a lot of guys and stuff in the lunchroom. So that's where I developed my style. So when I came out, eventually people compared me to guys because I was used to rapping with guys or against guys. So it was a little different. So even though they said I looked feminine, like some people say, you don't look like a rapper, because at that time, a lot of people thought you had to be hard or a little rough. So I was always, rough but feminine. So I had an attitude. I mean, so my first song, I did have an attitude, but at the same time, I presented myself as a young lady. So it was I took some people off guard.
Right.
So I know you said high school, but if you don't mind, can you go back a little bit before high school? Because I'm just curious to what exactly was going on around your environment growing up. And there's a reason why I'm asking this, which we'll get to a little bit further. But how was it growing up, like a little bit before you got to high school? What was some of your interests? What would Antoinette do growing up?
So interestingly enough, my family, cousin Sylvia Robinson with Sugar Hill Records.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was younger, I did not know that. But oftentimes, growing up in junior high school and everything, I used to have my little sweatshirt. My first rap name was Annie C.
Okay.
And we would rhyme around the neighborhood. So I wrote my first rhyme. I remember it was something about Donald Duck and, it was like one of those rhymes from back in the day.
Right.
But I was very young when I started because music was my life and my passion. So under normal circumstances, I used to write poetry a lot too when I was younger.
Okay.
So I wrote poetry, and then I, transitioned over to writing hip hop, of course, songs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, like I said, my first rhyme, I remember I was listening to the Sequence 3,
Mm-hmm. That's
and
Angie
so
Stone.
I got Annie C because it was like Blondie B and this one,
Right.
So I became Annie C. So like I said, my first name was Annie C. And I mean, a day in my life, it depends. I remember seeing like the Fat Boys. It was a global park because my mother and father used to live across the street from this place called Skate Fever.
Okay.
In the Bronx.
Okay.
So they would have a lot of events and stuff, and then they had a park. And back then there was a lot of jams in the park and stuff like that. So my life, really, I grew up in that environment.
Right.
So jams in the park. I think Kumo D.
Mm-hmm.
They were up there like on University in the Bronx, so they were right up the street from her, and they were like, "Oh, the treacherous three's up the street," stuff like that.
Right,
so I grew up with a lot of people and with a lot of culture, especially coming from the Bronx. You had Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five over by Jackson Avenue. So, and the Bronx is but so big, so you can get to all of these places. And I mean, you had Africa Bambaataa and all of that stuff over on that side, on the other side. So I didn't really venture over that way too much.
Okay.
But I was basically uptown. That's what they would call it, uptown,
Yeah.
and then down in the South Bronx.
Okay. So it's pretty safe to say that growing up, I mean, it was just an everyday occurrence. It's something that when you came outside, whether you were just around the neighborhood, school, it's just what was happening at the time. So you were surrounded by what we like to call the culture of hip hop.
Yep. break
all
dancing, right? Everybody walking around with cardboard boxes, throwing them on the floor, battling.
right.
You didn't know what to expect, so there was a lot of what we have today with gun violence and all that stuff. You know, a lot of times they would battle rap, battling break dancing and stuff, or battling rapping.
Right,
You know?
right. Now, what was it? What made you gravitate towards the music aspect and not something else, like let's say dancing or the art or just any other element?
I feel like I have two left feet. First of all,
Okay.
Although people in my family could sing, I tell you, I couldn't hold the note if you gave it to me in my hand.
Okay.
But because I loved poetry,
Okay.
it was an opportunity to take what I had in poetry and put it to music, and like I said, I just loved music.
Gotcha.
So, and what I could do is talk, I could speak well. So that was fine. So I could speak over a beat with no problem.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
You talked a little bit about being in the girl group. Can you take us back to paying dues and getting your guys' name out there as MCs?
Interestingly enough, we did a show one time. We went to Philly. So we just used to do things, like I say, on the street or at parties, right? And we did a show one time with the Fresh Prince and Jazzy Joe.
Oh, wow.
Before, he blew up. He was just this kid from Philly. He was out there on the stage, and it was funny because I was like, the people that you meet that you don't realize, like, what people are going to become later on, right, in life. So just to get out there, we did what everyone else did. You go to the jams in the park, you get on the microphone, you battle people locally, and you build up a reputation in your neighborhood. And so that speaks for itself.
Right. Did anything materialize as far as wax? Did you guys get close to being signed? Did anything almost happen for you guys as a girl group?
We recorded some songs and we started working. We would go out to Staten Island and we was working with Dr. Rock from the Force MDs for a little bit. And we were going to record, but then I had an altercation with one of the girls in the group and I became a solo artist.
Okay.
Can you
So that's what happened with me. It became too much.
Can you kind of give us a time frame of when this was?
I was still in high school. So we were in high school, as a girl group, but we knew each other from junior high school, all three of us. And so I think it was about like 11th grade when we kind of fell apart. And in 12th grade is when I came out by myself as a solo artist. So it really wasn't that long of a time frame between when I actually became a solo artist and then got a deal and was able to come out on Herbie Lovebug's compilation album, Herbie's Machine.
Right. Wow. Now, as far as being in the group, though, how were you guys making these connections? Like, how did you guys even know to go to Staten Island?
Oh, one of the girls in the group, Sharon was her name, who did the beatbox. She moved to Staten Island.
Okay.
And she met Dr. Rock. And so that's how we hooked up with them. Okay. But for me, like later on, I started working with a guy named Fat Doug, who went to school with me. And Doug and I, we met in math class. Okay. So one day I was sitting there and I saw him tapping on the table, like doing a beat in his head, and he was like, bouncing his head up and down. So I went over and I was like, "What you doing?" And he said he was a rapper. I said, "Me too," and he didn't believe me. Okay. So then he was like, "Oh, I want you to write something and come back tomorrow. Have something tomorrow." So I did, and then he was shocked because he really didn't believe that I was a rapper. But he went on to, he did some stuff with Bad Boy and with Puffy and on Jodeci's album and stuff like that. But he was the one who took me to Jay Ellis. Okay. Where Jay Ellis then signed me. I signed with him. Okay. And in turn, I ended up, with Next Plateau because him and Eddie O'Loughlin were close friends. So he was able to take my demo tape there. And when Herbie heard it, he was like, "Who's that? I want her on my album." So it was just the right place at the right time. I think I made the demo in September and my single dropped like November. Okay. Wow. It was like a matter of 2 months and people used to really try real hard. So it was meant to happen. But unfortunately, I was getting jerked financially. And a lot of us did back then because I had a passion. Although I had a passion for hip hop, I did not understand the business aspect of the industry. I just wanted to do what I loved. And that meant just grab a microphone and say some stuff, right? But I learned the hard way because I was a teenage mom. So I had a young daughter And the only way I could make money was from doing shows because all of my publishing was gone. I signed it away unknowingly. And at first, I remember me and this other guy, Geoff, he produced a lot of my stuff, and I worked with him as well.
Right.
And we would get checks from ASCAP. And one day we were sitting in our manager's office. We were talking about it. He's like, "Yeah, I got a check." I said, "Me too." And he looked at us and he was like, "Y'all getting checks?" And he went and he did something, and we didn't see another check.
Oh,
wow.
Because I think what happened was the contract that we signed made it so that he had the rights. So when he realized we were getting a percentage of that, it was like, "Oh no, you guys should get nothing." And that's what actually made me walk away from hip hop, because like I said, I felt like I was in an industry that I loved that didn't love me back.
Right.
And I didn't even understand my contribution or value to hip hop until I came back, about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, which is very interesting. So I remember before they closed the BB King's in Manhattan,
Yeah.
Rakim had his 50th birthday there, a celebration. And that was the first time that I was out in like 20 something years.
Oh, wow.
And I love Rakim.
Right.
He was my favorite male rapper. And a lot of people would call me the female Rakim or whatever,
Right,
but I
right.
love them, right?
right.
So I went to his event. And while I was there, I bumped into Busta Rhymes. And Busta Rhymes and I talked for like 45 minutes. Easy. And he told me that I inspired him. He said that he had my picture from Word Up magazine on his bedroom wall, and that they would talk about me at lunchtime, him and his friends and stuff, and that I inspired him. And I said, "What?" And he said, "Queen, you don't know what you mean." And I was touched by that, to be honest, right? And then I went to a show at the casino in Connecticut with Redman and Method Man, and it happened to be my birthday. So when I went, Meth called me out there. He was very happy to see me. And he told everyone, he said, in Rottweiler, when I said I used to battle cruise back when Antoinette had an attitude, he said, "This is Antoinette. She's my favorite female rapper."
Nice.
And I was shocked because I didn't realize that.
Wow.
I went to Don't Sweat the Technique tour with Yo-Yo and Rakim and Eric B. And when I went there, Rakim calls me out and he's rapping my song.
Oh.
So
Good.
all of the things that was happening around me, Redman, the love that he showed me, Keith Murray, like everybody that I met showed me love. And then I realized that perception is reality. And back then, I thought I didn't mean anything when I meant so much to so many people.
Right.
Can you, just real quick though, can you tell us a little bit? You mentioned about the getting the checks from ASCAP and all of that stuff, but when it came time to sit down in the office, right, for the first time, who did you have anybody there with you to go over the contracts? Were you by yourself? How did that whole thing work out?
So what happened was I was 18 years old. I went down to my manager's office, who was Jay Ellis at the time.
Okay.
And I hadn't signed yet, so he wasn't really my manager yet. So Fat Doug, as I stated, brought me down to him. So we had the demo tape and everything. And he said that Eddie wanted to give us a deal, but we had to sign with him. So he lied to me. He told me that Fat Doug was on his way to sign that afternoon. Okay. And I said, shouldn't I take this contract like to a lawyer or something? And then he had his friend Gus there, and he was like, "No, Gus is like a lawyer. He can explain it to you." And I was gullible. And I went for the okie doke. So I let his friend explain this contract to me, which was supposed to be something good for me, which was terrible.
Gotcha.
Wow.
But we had a deal on the table, and it was like, your song could be out real quick. We just have to do this. Just sign these documents, and we're good.
Huh. Wow.
What do you remember most about the reaction to "I Got an Attitude" when it dropped on that compilation?
What I remember the most was the next day when I went to school. The first time I heard it on the radio, because they would have, it wasn't like Hot 97 or anything. They would have the radio shows like on the side, like underground radio.
Yeah. WBAI and stuff like that.
I remember them playing it first because everybody in school would listen to them. and it was a DJ named Q-Tip, I think,
Mhm.
and DJ Q. He
Okay.
played it. And then the next day I went to school and people was like, oh. So I was excited just to hear it. But then the reaction of my peers and my friends and everyone, it was like unbelievable. I felt really, really good. Because it was like, I felt like, wow, all the hard work paid off. It was something I wanted to do and I finally did it. So I accomplished a goal. So it was a great achievement for me. And then to get the reaction from other, like the male rappers and stuff like that, to say, to hold me to like a Big Daddy Kane, or, they didn't compare me to other female rappers, which was really, really good. They compared me to the male rappers.
Mm-hmm.
So that spoke in volumes as well.
Right.
And I was very happy about that.
Right. What was your working relationship like with Herbie Lovebug?
I really liked Herbie a lot. And I would have to go out to Queens because they used the studio in Queens to record. So I would go out there. And I remember the first time Fat Doug and I went, and it was interesting because I Got an Attitude. It didn't sound like that. The lyrics were the same, but it flowed more. It wasn't as choppy, like orally potent, lethal, but steady. It wasn't like that. And so he gave us the beat. He was like, okay, this is the beat that I want you to use. And he was like, okay, now you got to go in the booth and you got to figure this out, because although you want the song to sound like this is the beat now. So you have to make it so that it flows with the beat better. And so that's when, so the changes were made on the spot in the studio. And like I said, I mean, everything with Herbie happened so fast because it's like we recorded the one song and the one song was gone. It was out. And then we recorded two actually on the compilation. I think it was Hit 'Em With This was the other one that we did on there. So, I mean, it was really, really cool. And then, of course, like meeting Salt and Pepper in the studio. So it was like they were already out. And then, forging that relationship was cool. And then meeting Sweet Tea and Kid and Play, because it was a family. It wasn't just, you're an artist and you're by yourself. It was like we're together.
Right.
So it was really, really cool.
So when can you tell us a little bit about the process that you had to go through as far as creating the album? Did you have a lot of rhymes already written down and then you guys just kind of put it together? Like what was the whole process?
There was a lot of rhymes already written, but there was a lot that had to be done. Okay. Because sometimes, as an artist, you write one thing, but then depending on the record company, and I'll be honest with you, for me, because that was the whole thing, like with me and MC Lyte, right? I came out and I was happy. So I'm just going to take it back for a moment.
Okay.
Because you asked me, how did I feel? So I came out, I was so happy. I felt like I finally made it. And it had to be a couple of weeks later, I heard somebody wrote a record that, somebody came out with a record that was coming against me. And I was like, I didn't understand it because I didn't do anything to anyone. It was like, why would somebody want to write a song about me? Right? So I found this out more recently because MC Lyte and I, we did not know each other. We did not speak until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was the first time we actually had a conversation.
What was that conversation?
Okay? It was great. It was awesome. Yeah. And I'll tell you why, because what we realized was that we were pegged against one another. Well, she was pegged against me and to come out with a song about me for no reason whatsoever. So it appears that Herbie had spoke to Milk and Giz. Milk and Giz wanted him to come out with a record similar to like UTFO and Roxanne Shante going back and forth. Because at that time, that was a way to get popular also, right?
Right.
Have these records going against each other. And I guess Herbie had told him, yeah, but then I guess he scratched whatever he was going to do, but he still had the similar beat, impeach the president. I mean, the beat didn't belong to them. It was impeach the president, right? And so when he gave me that beat and they heard it, they automatically thought that I was coming out against them, which doesn't make any sense when you listen to the lyrics. It had nothing to do with Audio 2 and Top Billing, right? So they told MC Lyte, Herbie got a girl to come out against us, so we need you to go and we need to go in the studio and for you to come out and retaliate and go against her. And that's how that happened. And it's really, really funny because a lot of people thought that I came out talking about MC Lyte. And that all had to do with timing, right? Because at first, my manager, they did not want me to say anything. They did not want me to retaliate. And that was very hard because where I came from, I was a battle rapper. If you come, just like, don't call me if you don't want me to answer. That's how I felt. Right? And somebody called me and I couldn't answer because my hands were tied. They were like, no, we're not going to do anything. No.
Why?
No. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't think that Jay Ellis himself understood true hip hop and the whole battle forum and how you had to gain respect by protecting yourself, you know, and your name and everything. I don't think he understood that. Right? Because he didn't look like me. He didn't understand me. He didn't come from where I came from. So it was for him. He just knew, like, Salt and Pepper, they were blowing up and they were making records. And I think he wanted me to be a Salt and Pepper. And like I said, because of the way I looked versus the way that I rhymed, even the record company didn't know how to market me or what to do with me. They wanted me to be like this sexy rapper. And I'm like, that's not who I am. Like, I'm a true hardcore rapper, regardless of how you feel that I look. So they were actually taking me away from me.
Right. So they I got you.
Antoinette really was. Right. So that was hard too. But, you know, taking it back again, I don't feel that they really understood that I needed to retaliate immediately. So it wasn't until like my first album, and then you heard Lights Out, Party's Over, and people forgot all about 10%ers. Right. Some people didn't even know she was talking about me. So it was as if Antoinette came out to attack MC Light, which was far from the case.
Right.
You know something? You. I mean, of course, you're right. You went through it, but as a fan, remembering back then, that is pretty much what it felt like. I hate to say it, but it's like you said, the timing was off. The timing was off because I think what happened also is that by then Light had sort of created such a momentum that, you know, she had like a fan base and people that liked her music, that then all of a sudden when we heard that song, it was kind of puzzling. It was like,
why would she do that?
Right.
Like, what did Light do to her?
Without knowing the backstory, that's just, you know, especially back then, there was no way for us to know anything else because it's just, we could only either hear it on the radio or, you know, word of mouth kind of thing. And
but I said, see, in this day and age where rappers drop records like every 5 minutes,
right,
I could have just went in the studio and dropped it.
right.
And I could have dropped it just so that the street had it, even if my record company wouldn't let me do it. I could have just did something. Oh, it was leaked in the street. I did it at home, right. But we didn't have that forum back then. So you had to actually wait for your project to drop. So everything's scheduled. You know, you're going to retaliate. You retaliate on your album. Your album's going to be out in 6 months. Right? So,
right.
And so that's what happened.
Right. Wow.
So you said that 4 or 5 years ago that you and Light had that conversation. Take us back. Where were you guys at? How did it all happen? What did you guys
we
talk
spoke
about?
on the phone, actually.
Okay.
And I don't even remember. Oh, I think it was actually through Instagram or one of the social media platforms where we connected like via inbox and we exchanged numbers and we actually had a phone conversation. And like I said, you know, as mature young women, we were able to have a reasonable conversation. There's no animosity or anything like that because, like I said, we didn't know each other. It just came out of left field. And she had ordered my book. And I think that when she read about my situation with her in my book, that may have also, you know, opened her eyes to the fact that I was happy and elated about my song dropping. And then all of a sudden I was viciously attacked for no reason. And she's saying to herself, what do you mean for no reason? You know, you came at Milk and Giz. That's why. Right? And it's like, no. And then I told her, I said, listen to the lyrics. Not one time did I say anything. And she's like, oh my goodness.
Wow. That's crazy how something so simple like that can alter so many things. Wow.
No, it's true. And then for me, you know, walking away from hip hop, and I walked away because I had a bogus contract. But you have all these rumors, right? Some people say, oh, MC Light killed her career. Like, how can somebody kill your career? It's silly. It was silly, but like I said, out of sight, out of mind. People have to make up something, and I never came out to say, no, that's not the case or whatever. It's like, say what you want. Because at that point, I didn't really care. As I told you, I felt I was in the industry that I loved that didn't love me back. I wasn't making the money that I was supposed to. I was getting ripped off. I had a little daughter that I needed to take care of, and I decided to go back to school and get an education because I said I'm going to make money one way or the other.
Was there any, before you completely walked away from it, was there any ever a conversation with anybody about, well, let's try to get out of this deal and find just, like a deal somewhere else? Did that come up at all?
No. So what happened with me was I did not know the business aspect of the industry. I mean, I know business now. Trust me, I do. But I did not know it at that age. And I had an attitude problem. So basically, I cut off my nose to spite my face because nothing in me said, you can fight through this, get out of this contract, and continue on your path in music.
Okay.
Nothing in me said that. I just, you know what? I'll tell you what, they're not going to make another dime off of me. Right. So I'm just going to go get an education and I'll make money that way.
Right.
I'll do something different. So it was my own fault that nothing happened. And lack of knowledge, is everything.
Right.
Before we talk about everything you got going on after hip hop, kind of want to delve into your albums a little bit. What was those recording sessions like for the debut album?
Oh, I loved them. I loved them. We would go to the studio often. As I said, we went out to Queens because he was still using that studio. Well, the first couple of songs I would say with Herbie first, because afterwards I didn't work with Herbie anymore.
Right.
So when I was working with Herbie, that was great. Like I said, because it was like a family. There were different artists that would come in and out. Kwame, he helped do some things and stuff. So it was really, really cool. Then I went from that to, because Jay Ellis wanted to be in control. So he signs IG off. And when he signed G off became my producer because it was for him to keep all the money. Like from Herbie, he couldn't get much. Right. Okay. So and then with Fat Doug and I, it was divide and conquer. I signed the agreement. Fat Doug, he didn't sign anything. He was not coming down that day. When he found out I signed, he was upset. And then he kind of separated Doug and I, and he hooked me up with IG off in order to produce the first album. And so the studio sessions, though, I was still excited because I was recording, right? I was happy about it and everything. And I had a ton of fun. I wasn't a weed smoker, although a lot of people smoked and stuff like that. So, people try to get me to smoke, it makes you more creative. You can write more, you relax, all this other stuff. But I was like, no, that's okay. And I think the reason why I was like that was because my great-grandmother ended up raising me and my sister because my mother and my father were out in the street on drugs. So coming from that type of environment, I didn't want to look like that. I didn't want to become that. So I wouldn't try any of that stuff.
Right. When your first single hit TV and radio airwaves, how did life change for you?
Life changed because I became popular. So I'll give you an example. I used to go to McDonald's for breakfast sometimes. And I wouldn't get dressed really. I would throw on something and go to McDonald's. And one time I walked in and I looked crazy. And somebody in there was like, you look just like Antoinette. I said, oh, a lot of people tell me that. And I looked and I realized you can't just throw on things now and run to the corner store. Because you in the neighborhood, you outside, you just run, I'm going to the bodega. Right? It was like, you can't do that now. And my sister used to jump on me and answer that you got to put on something else. You got to, make sure that every time you go outside, you look a certain way. So life changed me because I became popular, especially in my neighborhood. Right? So people were like, oh, that's Antoinette. I saw Antoinette. Or, we didn't have the cell phones with the pictures and all that stuff. We had just got beepers. So we didn't have all that going on. So they weren't getting the picture, but they would see you and everything was word of mouth. So I had to like present myself differently, and stuff like that. But I mean, like I said, I was excited. I was happy, that people knew who I was and that people respected, me as a rapper, especially like, in my neighborhood, where
Right.
my friends that I grew up with and everything else, that meant a lot to me. So now it was almost like people looked up to me because I also represented females from the Bronx. So I represented a borough. A lot of people kept saying I was from Queens, but I think it's because I worked with Herbie and I was in a studio in Queens. And ironically, when I first left hip hop, I went to LaGuardia Community College out in Queens.
Okay.
So I ended up in school with Craig G
Yeah.
and stuff. And so people would see
Wow.
me out there. And that was near Queensbridge. So they automatically said she's from Queens. And then I
Um,
would do a lot of running around with like Big Daddy Kane and stuff when I was rapping. And we would go to Marley's. That's when we did the promo for Mr. Magic, the raw attitude and stuff like that. So everybody just automatically thought that I was like from Queens. So I
God.
would hear that, I would see it in magazines and everything. I heard I was a police officer. I was like, I didn't do
Yeah.
that. Like people tell me I was a police officer. I was like, no, I never did that.
Yeah, that's
You
crazy.
know,
Yeah,
I've robbed a lot of people in a lot of places on the way to who I am, but that wasn't one of them.
how did it feel when you found out that there was so many people that had your like posters from Word Up magazine and stuff like that hanging in the rooms?
I was in awe
Yeah.
because sometimes we don't see ourselves the way people see us. And I was truly a victim of that. Like I didn't see the value in myself that people saw in me. So like I said, I was happy because I knew that people knew me
Mhm.
and people respected me in my neighborhood, and if I of course went someplace where, oh, that's Antoinette or what have you. But I truly didn't see my contribution to hip hop until I came back to
Till
hip hop.
afterwards. Okay.
Right. I mean, you have some people that knew the whole time, what they meant. But for me, that wasn't the case. And a lot, oftentimes, probably because I was also sheltered, meaning like Jay Ellis didn't let me do a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
So in the forums where you had all the other rappers, Antoinette was absent. And that even Busta Rhymes told me that. Like he said, I've been trying to get to you for years. He was like, but they had you on lockdown,
Mm.
like away from everybody. And I think Jay Ellis had this thing where if you stay away and you come out, then you're like this surprise. It's silly.
Mm.
Because
Or
like I
was
said, you
or
don't
was
understand.
or was JL? Is that like short for jealous?
Probably. But he got his notoriety from Gloria Gaynor. He was her manager.
Yeah. Okay.
So, that was his big thing. I will survive.
Right. Right.
And so he was from that era. And like I said, he was an older guy.
Yeah, he just didn't understand. He
And
didn't
he
get it.
didn't understand like what worked for doing something with a disco artist was different for a hip hop artist and what needed to be done. So I just wasn't in that environment and didn't have that clique of people and the support system that I truly needed. Now, had I stayed, had I walked away from Jay Ellis, I would not have probably came out on Herbie's Machine
True.
because I would not have known him. And I probably would have been with Fat Doug, and Fat Doug, he eventually signed with Bad Boy. But he has a whole other story,
Mm.
he went down his path.
Right.
But I mean, I'm fortunate and I'm grateful
Mm.
for the experience, the exposure, because I think everything happens the way that it's supposed to.
Right.
And we all end up where we need to be.
Right. Two things. You keep mentioning Doug. Is he the one that he was on? I'm trying to remember the song, but I think he was like on a Jodeci song.
Yes, he
Is that
was.
the same guy?
Same guy. Fat Doug.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what the song. It was the one that had like the EPMD or they did like a remix.
Come and talk to me.
Come
Come
and
and
talk
talk to me. That's it.
Yeah,
Okay, so that is.
cool.
And my second thing is you had a chance to work with Said G from Ultramagnetic, right?
Oh yeah,
How
did.
can you talk a little bit about that? How was that experience?
Oh, I loved working with him, and I'm gonna tell you why. So he lived in Webster Projects,
Right.
and I went there to his house to record, and his mother was awesome. That's why. And then I heard that his mother would talk about me all the time. I was like, that girl Antoinette, she's real good or whatever. But his mom, I really liked.
Okay.
But working with him was great. It was another artist who was from the Bronx, you know, in the projects there. And it was like we clicked instantly. We were label mates. And I came in, he had the beat, we made it happen.
Nice.
And so I was really happy, you know, for working with him. And it gave me an opportunity to work with another producer aside from Geoff, like on my album.
Right. Okay.
Right. And I did another one with Mantronics, and that was a good experience too. I liked working with him.
Mantronics. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
That was
That's
the fox that
right.
rocks the box.
Right. What was that experience like? How was it being with you were in the studio at the same time when
Yeah,
you
we were in the studio at the same time.
and how was that? How is he as a producer? You know, is he very
he was
strict?
excellent. He was so good. And you know, even like when I was rapping, he'd be like, okay, try say it like this, like do this, do that.
Right.
So he was very actively involved in the recording of the record. He wasn't one of those like, this is my beat, I know that I'm good, just rap on it, and you know, whatever. He actually was engaged with me in making the song. So, you know, I really appreciated him too.
Nice.
As far as shows for Antoinette, give us a good Latin Quarter story.
Shows for Antoinette. So this was Antoinette. I would go to, if the show was at 12, I get to the place at 11:30. And I would do the show. And then I would just leave because I wasn't, like I said, I loved what I did, but I didn't really hang around and I didn't hang out like that. But the one show that I loved was in Eatontown, New Jersey. It was a roller skating ring. And I mean, the crowd was awesome. Everything was awesome. I mean, just the feel, it was like the atmosphere was charged. And I remember there was a girl, you know, sometimes you get them like in the audience. I don't know what she was saying, but she was saying something smart. And I looked at her. I said a couple of words, which I won't repeat. And then I said, and they want to know why I got an attitude. And when I said that, the crowd went crazy. And Fat Doug was actually DJing for me that night. And he dropped, you know, I got an attitude. It hit and it was over.
Oh,
and I'm saying, so that was like my best experience in doing shows and stuff, because Jay would limit everything that I was doing.
Is there a good tour lineup that you can remember that you were on that you can remember the most?
No, because for as far as like just shows, like Queen Latifah, you know, Jungle Brothers, I did shows with everyone because we were all coming up at the same time, you know, Raw Bass, Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie, like that. You know, I just did shows with so many artists.
Right. As far as your second album, which was released the next year after, what did you learn from the first album going into the second album, and how did things change, or did you kind of stick with the program as far as recording?
What I did, I'll be honest with you, the second album to me wasn't indicative of who Antoinette was. And there was one song on there that was kind of screaming that. And the song was I Want to Be Me. Because what people didn't know was that I was being stripped of who I was. I think they wanted to get a female solo Salt and Pepper. I believe that was the angle of Next Plateau Records and what they were trying to do to me. So if you notice the second album, although I like some of the stuff on there, I'm not saying that I don't. It's more like the New Jack Swing, House and stuff. That wasn't who I was. I didn't come out that way. I wasn't known originally to be that way. So where did all this stuff come from? You know, the go-go thing. It's like what was happening at the time with Salt and Pepper. They wanted to kind of get a solo female artist to kind of follow in that footstep. Baby, make it boom, you know? Things of that nature. So I think that I learned more from the second album than I did from the first album. Because at least in the first album, I was allowed to have the liberty of, in most instances, being myself. Right? In the second album, and that was another thing that helped me decide to walk away, because if I can't be who I am, and I'm not really making money because you're robbing me, why am I here?
Right.
So that's what happened to me, and that was my mindset.
Right. You alluded throughout this interview of walking away from the industry. At what point do you leave Next Plateau Records?
After the second album. I was in breach of contract. I left.
Hmm. What was that contract was for what? Like how many albums, or do you remember?
I don't remember, honestly,
Okay.
but I think it was something where I was locked in for a long period of time. It was a
Yeah.
horrible contract.
Yeah.
You know, all publishing gone, all this, all that. So it was like, well, what do you do?
Have you been able to work? Excuse me. Have you been able to work anything out as far as trying to get any of that back?
You talking about the masters?
Like anything?
Well,
Publishing,
right now,
masters.
nobody knows where my masters are. Next Plateau doesn't have it, but they sold a lot of their catalog.
Right.
Right, but they don't have it, and nobody can direct us in the right direction
Really?
in regards to where we'd be able to find them.
Wow.
So
That's
I thought
crazy.
all this time that Jay Ellis had my masters, because I swore that I saw him with them, because you know we had those big tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I
Yeah.
thought that I saw it one time in his office, and I was told by Geoff no, that he doesn't have it. So Geoff was trying to locate where, you know, who might have them, but nobody knows.
Mhm.
And that's why, like, you can't find my stuff, you know, on Apple Music, on this, on that, you know, because we don't have the masters.
Wow. Now, what about? So, I don't want to jump too far because you spoke about leaving. Actually, before I get to that question, you mentioned leaving after the second album, and the reason why I asked you earlier, as far as coming up, you know, what you were around and how things were growing up, was because I want to know when you walked away, being that you were surrounded by hip hop, it's not just the music. Did you continue to sort of, you know, live the life as a hip hopper, even though you weren't in the industry, or did you detach from everything completely?
I totally detached.
From everything.
It's like I just turned like the switch off
Okay.
because I was disgusted. Like I told you, you know, sometimes we
Right.
get in our own way, and I definitely got in my own way in
Okay.
regards to music. There was nothing in me. It was like everything that was so alive and vibrant died. It was like it was killed,
Okay.
you know, in the process. And it's like I was hurt. You know, I had a lot of emotions. And for me, it was just best to just stop,
Okay.
you
So
know.
now,
So that's what I did.
right. So now, when you came back on the scene, when you say you started going to these places, talking to different artists, and you know, finding out what you truly meant to the culture and to hip hop and to the music, has there been any thought or any talk about Antoinette doing any kind of music these days, or have you even thought about maybe even recreating some of the songs that you had before?
We talked about recreating some of the songs that I had before.
Okay.
When I first came back out, I had a song called Back for Everything that I was
Okay.
working on. And DJ Scratch, I started working with him. So, like on
Oh,
my Instagram
right.
page, way back on his, because he posts all the time, you
Yeah.
know, you could probably find him more so on mine. There was a snippet of that song.
Uh-huh.
And then we went on to record like 6 other songs.
Have you performed at all since you came back?
I performed twice.
Twice?
Once in Albany, and then once there was this show on 90 something street. I can't remember the name of the place, but that was
Right.
the first show I had done
Okay.
in 20 something years, and it
Right.
was with a lot of other artists, a lot
Mm.
of, you know, artists from my era.
Yeah. So I mean, you can perform your songs though, right? I
I can
guess.
perform them because who wants to
Perform.
stop me? Nobody knows where anything
Right.
is.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I can perform my songs,
All right.
all of them.
Is that something you are you looking to try and do some shows? Is that something that kind of motivates you at all, or like where
When
are
I
you right
first
now?
came back out, because that's when I first wrote the book and everything, I was promoting the book, and I was open to doing shows and stuff. And lately I've just been more laid back. I went through a lot over the past couple of years. I mean, a lot of people have with COVID and stuff, because that's really what stopped my flow from, you know, doing like book tours and different things. So like my mom got sick. She ended up passing away last October.
Oh, I'm
So there
sorry.
was just a lot. It was like from one thing after the next. So now, I haven't really been even thinking about stuff. So with this whole 50-year hip hop anniversary thing,
Mm-hmm.
I was offered to do a couple of shows, but the timing just didn't work because like now, I'm a business professional as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
I have other responsibilities
Right.
and the timing of certain things. Because right now, like I'm an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the director of financial reporting and tax accounting for Upstate Utility in New York.
Okay.
And so I carry a heavy weight at work as well,
Right.
running two departments and stuff. And then timing is like, you have month end close, quarter close, year end close. So depending on what's happening and when, I really can't
Gotcha.
be there.
Right.
But because I was just offered to do a show, I was offered to do 2 shows, but the timing it didn't work out for me.
Right. We covered most of your music history throughout this interview, but let's talk a little bit about life outside of music. Right after music, is that when you graduated from college?
Yeah, I went to college after.
Okay, let's
So
just throw
originally,
a timeline of everything that happened from college to the point you're at now. So, you graduated from college, accounting degree.
after. So I have a whole story.
Okay.
So originally, when I went to college, as I said, I'm going to make money, so I have to figure out how am I going to make money. So people would tell me, "Oh, be a nurse."
Mm-hmm.
Nurses make good money. That's what you used to get the jobs with the good money. Remember?
Right.
Okay, so I decided to go to school for nursing. So when I first left, I went to school for nursing, and then I said, I wonder if I'm going to like this or not. So I became an EMT because I wanted to see nurses in action.
Mm.
I wanted to get a feel for what nurses did. And I did not want to be a nurse. I would go into emergency rooms. I would go into nursing homes as an EMT, and I would see what nurses had to do. And they did a lot of running around and things that it was like, no. And I would see the doctor come in, and the doctor would, write down some orders and give it to the nurse, and the nurse goes running. So I said, I'll be a doctor.
Mm.
I'd rather be a doctor. I cared about people. And I saw a lot of people in emergency rooms who were medical professionals that really didn't care about people. It was very interesting, like the dynamics of what I saw. So I ended up going to City College. So I graduated from the 2-year college, and I went to the 4-year college as a pre-med student. So I was in the Sophie Davis biomedical program at City College because I got good grades. I graduated with all A's. And then my life turned, because I was in a physically abusive relationship, and I had 2 kids, and I had to run away and do a do-over with my life.
Mm.
So being an accountant, what I am today, wasn't what I intended at all. I fell into accounting.
Okay.
I started all over in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 kids with no furniture, nothing. I had to quit the job that I had at the time because he was stalking me.
Mm.
I had to stop going to school because he was stalking me out of fear for my life. I was 24 years old at that time. So one day I went with my friend to the unemployment office. She asked me to drive her there because I still had my car. I took her. And as I said, I was friendly, so I would always talk to people. And I was talking to a guy that worked there. And he was like, I know you're here with someone, but are you working right now? And I was like, no. And he asked me if I was interested in going for an interview. I said, sure, I'll go. And I went for the interview, and I ended up working for an oil company in the Bronx as an accountant.
Mm.
And accounts receivable clerk, because I didn't have an accounting degree.
Okay.
But that job was like a piece of cake. I was done in like 2 hours, 8 hours worth of work. It didn't make sense. And right, because so then they said to me, oh, you're very smart. So the controller, I would start to help him. And they said, when he retires, we want you to take the position. So I thought to myself, I was like, I'll only be valuable here. I don't have the credentials to go elsewhere.
Mm.
Right. So they feel like I'm capable and I'm intelligent. I have all of these college credits, but it's like anatomy and physiology. It's a lot of biological chemistry and stuff like that. I said, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go back to school, and I'm gonna get my degree in accounting. And so I went back to school. I worked full time in the day, went to school full time at night, got my degree in accounting, and I was offered a position at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Nice.
So I ended up going to Price Waterhouse. And that's really where my career began in accounting and flourished from there.
Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit about your memoir?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm actually saying a lot of it as we're talking.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my life. But writing that book was very therapeutic for me. Oftentimes, we don't realize how much stuff we harbor in ourselves. And when we go through things, we can build up walls. We build up walls to keep things out, not realizing that walls also keep things in. And we have to stop and see what we have behind that wall with us. And sometimes what we're doing to ourselves. As I said, perception is reality. And unfortunately, we go through things in life that form our perception. We all have eyes, but we all don't see the same things. And the reason why is because we don't see with our eyes. We see through them. We see through our hurt. We see through our pain. We see through a lot of different things that we've been through. So we all have different perspectives.
Right.
And so that's why, for me, it's been important for me to mentor young people, to go out and speak to young people so they can understand that they're okay being themselves. And it's very easy to fit in to an environment. The hardest thing is being you. And I respect people who are themselves, and it's okay to be you. And you have to understand that you're perfectly you and wonderfully unique. You know, we all have good and bad aspects. We can all fall short. None of us are perfect. And our whole goal in life is to just be the best us that we can be. You have to be the best you that you can be. Always put your best foot forward. Always do what you have to do. And when you give 100%, even when people get hurt, and I've been hurt, you know, by people, but then I had to stop and think that I also been hurt by myself. Because it wasn't the person that hurt me. It was my expectations that hurt me. And people are not you. It's almost like you have some men or women in relationships that get cheated on, right? And they sit there and they say, I don't understand. I would never do that, right? And you say, I'm sorry, that's
It's
my
okay.
refrigerator talking. Okay. But he said, you know, I would never do that. And the truth of the matter is, you wouldn't and you didn't, but they would and they did. Right? So sometimes it's not what's wrong with you. It's what's right with you and what's wrong with somebody else. And we have to embrace people for that. And I always talk about love even, right? If I'm in a relationship with you and you say, I love you, right? And I say, I love you too. Or I told you, vice versa. You know, I love you. You say, I love you too. We automatically think that the person that just said that loves us in the same capacity in which we love them. Right? Because we judge it according to how we feel. But now I ask the question, you love me. How do you love me? What's love to you?
Yeah.
I'm serious, right? Because you have some people that love you, that can go out and cheat on you, come back and smile in your face, but they love you in their own way. So because sometimes what we have to understand is that the love you have to give is not the love I desire to have or need in my life.
Right.
So I'm going to love you, but I'm going to love you from a distance.
No, you're right.
I mean, this is with maturity and with going through things. And so it's important for me to teach younger people, you don't have to go through certain things because I can tell you, you know what I'm saying, that I was you. I had the same perspective. I did the same things. I can tell you what you're going to do before you even do it or what you're going to think before the thought even pops in your head. But what I can tell you is this also, I'm an overcomer. Right? I stand strong. I've been through a lot of things and I'm still here. And I didn't go through them just for me. I went through them so I can tell you that I don't imagine how you feel. I know exactly how you feel because I was you or I am you. But I can also tell you that if I can make it through and I can be successful, so can you. So I can inspire you at the same time. So my life today is still helping people in one capacity or another. It's still encouraging and lifting people up. I can't tell you that I don't have an attitude sometimes still, because I do. It's just a part of who I am. But I've learned to control my attitude and to make sure that, I am able to be productive and to truly help people, to empathize with people, and to let them know that it's not going to be all right. It's already all right. But you have to walk in it.
Right. Man.
Beautiful.
I know I was long-winded, but
No.
It's
We
it's
could talk to
crazy.
you all night.
Yeah. Because I'm listening to everything you're saying. You speak about youth empowerment, and you talk about domestic abuse and domestic violence and everything. And I'm thinking that at the same time, even though you say you walked away, it's like you didn't really walk away. You just took on a different lane, but you're still speaking to the same community, the same, people that maybe not hearing you through music, but
right.
they're still hearing your words. So you're still hip hop.
Well, hip hop. I'm always.
You're
I
still
I
hip hop.
realized I'm always going to be hip hop.
Always.
All right.
Always.
One thing that's interesting to me, though, and I mean, you guys didn't touch on it, so I'm just going to bring it up, is the absence of a bridge. And I'm going to tell you what I mean when I say that. I know what the bridge has to be, but I'm talking about like the old school, new school.
Oh, I would.
Thing.
Okay. I was going to ask you.
Oh, you are?
Well, because you mentioned you have kids, right? You have 2?
I have 4 in total now.
4.
Old people now.
I'm gonna let you. Yeah, I'm gonna let you say.
But okay, I'll take you back to my son. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
This was interesting. So when Eminem was hot, he was fire.
Right.
I was driving in the car with my kid. He was in elementary school, I think.
Okay.
I think he was in elementary school. My youngest son and his best friend. So they're listening. Slim Shady. I'm driving, and they was like, "Yo, Eminem's the GOAT. He's the GOAT." So I said, "What?" I said, "What about Rakim? What about Big Daddy Kane? What about such?" I'm talking to my kid. He looked at me. You know what he said? "I don't know who that is, mommy. You never taught me." He smacked me in my face with the truth, right?
Right.
Now, you're talking about a hip hop artist.
Yeah.
Right? And my kid didn't know the people that I came up with.
Right.
Now, I know, like I said, I have my story and I kind of turned the switch off and I do all these other things. So there's reasons maybe for me, but there's really no excuse at the end of the day. If my kid is listening to hip hop, for me not to expose him to everything that he needs to be exposed to.
Right.
And to teach him the history of hip hop. So we have dropped, and I'm not the only one. I'm talking about people who are in hip hop didn't teach their kids.
Oh, yeah.
And the people around them the history of hip hop. And that's why the kids don't know.
But then those same ones turn around and complain about the music that's being made now. And
not only that, think about it. If somebody says to you, "This is the real hip hop, my stuff is real," you telling me my stuff is fake, right? You just said your stuff is real, so my stuff is fake.
Right.
You can go kick rocks, but you want respect from me.
Right.
Right. So the bridge that's needed is called respect.
Uh-huh.
And it goes both ways. We grew up in a time where we learned, you have to respect your elders. Right? So when you saw older people on the street, you gave them the comments of "How you doing, Miss Such and Such?" That's the way we grew up. We grew up in a community where if the lady down the block saw you do something wrong, it was just as bad as your mother seeing you do something wrong. Those times changed a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you have kids that are not even showing respect to their own parents, what makes you think that they're going to sit here and respect you because you said so? When you're talking about their music, you don't understand. It's mumbling. It's this, it's that. My thing is this. If you don't like it, don't listen to it.
Right.
But every artist has the right to express themselves how they see fit.
Right. And what puzzles me sometimes is that even from our time, we went through the same thing. So that's why sometimes I don't understand why they do it to this generation. Like, in other words, my parents, for example, didn't understand what I was listening to, why I was listening to it. They didn't even understand that that I had a connection to the music and everything that I was experiencing, at the time, like as far as going outside and seeing the graph and the kids dancing on they didn't really understand that. You know what I mean? So kids now can relate to these new artists. There's something about it that speaks to them, whether it's just a vibe or because they're speaking their language, whatever it is, but there's a connection. So like, why would we stomp on that? You know what I mean? Instead of trying to understand it, even if we don't like it, we don't have to like it.
Well, I think we came from a time where people were more lyrical, right? So you listen to what someone was saying. Right. Now it's about how the music makes you feel. Right. They could be in the studio smoking weed, because a lot of them smoke. Yeah. Right? And be like, yeah, I get high. I'm fly because I get high. But that sounds good, man. Then they I'm fly and I get high. And that be the whole song. I'm saying it's the vibe. It's how it's making them feel at the time. And if that same thing, if they feel that way, then that can be transferred to a whole group of kids. Because like my daughter said, there's so many genres of hip hop. And I said, oh crap, hip hop has genres? I didn't know that. Because when I grew up, we were all hip hop artists. Yeah. Right? You had Jungle Brothers, De La Soul, Rakim, everybody, but we were all just hip hop art. We didn't say there's different genres. Right. But now there's so many different genres of hip hop, and everybody listens to something different. What my daughter listens to, my son doesn't listen to. So it's really, really interesting. And then the kids are also making money hand over fist. So instead of appreciating the fact that they're not getting ripped off like we did, some people get jealous because they're making too much. Right. Instead of trying to teach them financial literacy and teach them how to keep the wealth in our communities and in their families, we rather sit here and turn up our nose because they're making too much. It doesn't make sense what's happening these days. While we still try to do shows and we're struggling and they're paying us, nickels on the dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But my whole thing is we have a responsibility, especially as adults. And my responsibility is to build up the next generation, not to tear them down. There's enough out there that's against us already. The last thing we need to do is destroy ourselves.
Right.
And that's just how I feel. You know what I'm saying? As a mother, I have 2 sons and 2 daughters. So I have 2 males that walk out this house. Well, they don't walk out this house. One of them doesn't live here anymore. But I have 2 males, that I have to be concerned about every single day. And I have to equip them. And then I have 2 females that I still want to be ladies when they walk out to conduct and hold themselves in a high regard in a certain way. And that's on me as a mother. Now, yes, I know the phrase, and it is true. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Right. But for me, I've been teaching my kids for a long time. I've been instilling certain morals and values for a long time. And I'm grateful to say that they stuck. And my goal is to go out here and to help as many kids as I can. Because once you expose kids to something different, oftentimes they want something different. Knowledge is key. You don't know what you don't know. And if you're not exposed to 2 different sides, you can't choose. And the good thing is, as I told you earlier, I was raised by my great-grandmother, right? So my great-grandmother lived in the Bronx and we lived uptown, right? So uptown is like uptown. It's not the South Bronx, right? My mother and my father, growing up, we still got to visit them from time to time. They weren't just completely gone, like I didn't see my mother and father at all, right? So as I got older, I had to make a choice. So first, my mother and father lived on 125th Street in Harlem. I was down there. I got to see what was happening in Harlem. I saw a lot of people. At that time, it was like drug infested, right? Like in the 80s and stuff. So I got to see a lot of stuff that was happening down there. Then they moved to the South Bronx.
Okay.
I was exposed to that, and that was fun. It was fun for me. Why? Because when I was a teenager, coming up, a preteen, whatever, I was on a train 2:00 in the morning because I didn't have any. They were drunk or high, so I could do whatever I wanted, right? But when I was with my grandmother, I had structure. It was a whole different. I was in two worlds at the same time, and I was able to choose the world that I wanted to walk in. I had an opportunity that most people don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's important for me to try to expose people and to give them an insight and an understanding. And I'm so grateful that in this day and age, we have a lot of young people that went to college, a lot of young people that are coming up. And it's a whole different mindset. Like I said, even these rappers, they are business minded. That's why they're making money.
Yeah.
Right? They have to be. It started with what? Oh, you won't sign me? I'll sell my CDs out my trunk.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All of a sudden, you get the buzz in the neighborhood, and now people getting distribution deals, but they're owning the label.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, well, that was then, and then now, the streaming stuff. You just throw your stuff up and see whatever sticks. I mean, I got every 5 minutes there's a new song.
Every five.
Before we was looking forward to the album. The album lasted like a year.
Exactly.
Like now it's like, what's next? What's
next?
What's next
every Friday,
right?
Yep.
But like I said, I think that we just have to embrace each other. We have to educate the youth, because even what I'm seeing with the 50th anniversary of hip hop, I see more old school shows than I see anything else. I said, it's 50th anniversary. It's 50 years of hip hop. What show am I seeing that's showing me 50 years of hip hop?
Right.
So when you cut off a whole generation, what's the expectation here?
Right. Yeah, there was very few. I mean, I think the
Yankee Stadium. The Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, we went to that one. There's a few, but that's I guess the overall pictures, that's still
50
not
years
enough.
of hip hop was an opportunity for me and my kids to go to the same arena, and I see somebody that I love, and they see somebody.
Right.
It was an opportunity for families to finally come together and enjoy hip hop venues together.
Right.
Did you happen to make that Yankee show?
No, I didn't. I didn't
go.
Okay. I know my girl Nikki did, though. Nikki D.
Yeah. We seen her. We seen her at Bronx Park that day.
I really haven't been to many places.
Yeah.
But it's just a choice, like I said, because I'm really funny, and it's hard for me. I'm a real person, and I speak my mind, and it's hard for me to deal with phony people. Don't embrace me when I'm in your face, and when I walk away the next couple of days, you don't even know who I am anymore.
Right.
I don't function well in that type of environment.
Well, I hope you, being that you've gone through so much in your life, I hope at least that when Sincere and myself say that we are very much fans of you, always have been, always have appreciated your work. I asked a friend of mine, before we got on, I asked a good friend of mine, I said, we're older now, so I have to ask it in this type of way, like, hey, do you remember Antoinette? And then I just said it like that, right? And that's like, the artist, Antoinette, and he's like, do I? He's like, she's bad as hell. What are you asking me if I remember her for? So I'm just saying that, like you said, you weren't too aware until later on the impact and how much you meant. But you meant a lot, you know what I mean? And I think it was unfortunate, like you said, the timing of certain things left us wanting more and sort of not understanding like what exactly was going on. And forget about like the beef. I'm just talking about music wise, because from like you said, from the first album to the second, we're kind of like, yeah, it doesn't sound like that like that Antoinette that we're you know what I mean? That
it was missing the bottom. It was missing me.
Yeah, and it was
like
very
going through emotions and doing what other people wanted you to do, or you were told that you had to do.
For
this particular project, and that's not good at all.
Right.
When you take an artist version of themselves, they're no longer an artist, right? It's like a form with no substance, and that's what I felt.
It was confusing
the second time around.
Right. And then you got to remember that, because so let's say that second album was 1990.
Yeah,
90, right? So I mean, a lot of your fans are like what, 19, 18, somewhere around that age, more or less. We don't, what did we know but what's being presented to us. So sometimes
exactly, you only know that Antoinette dropped something. Let me go get
right,
that.
and then
You
sometimes
only
we're
pick
just
it up and be
thinking,
like,
but we don't have that much knowledge as far as the business either.
right.
So we're thinking like, man, what is like, what direction is she going? Like, why? How could you come out this way and now you sound like this? Like, what's going on? We think
That's
that it's
true.
just you're just trying to make music to appeal to a different type of crowd. Like, we don't know what to think. So I think that
That's
part was
true.
unfortunate. But the thing is that you still made a big impact on everybody. So I just want you to know that from us here at Changing the Hip Hop Guards, we appreciate what you've
Well, thank
contributed,
you.
and not only on the music side and all of that, but even what you're still doing now. Is very important. Like, unfortunately, I was just speaking to someone that was kind of going through that as far as being in an abusive relationship, literally like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the biggest thing that comes up when that topic, arises is how do you get out of it? And it seems
Right.
like no one ever really knows. Because you
Oh,
on the outside trying to give someone advice, like there's 1,000 things you can say, but we don't really understand when that
well,
person that's in
what
it.
people have to understand in abusive relationships, and I know from, like I said, my experience, I was afraid to leave because I thought that if I left, he would kill me,
Right.
not realizing that if I stayed, he was more apt to kill me.
Mm,
Okay.
right.
So the way out, and I don't know why it popped in my head, and I'll just say what I feel, the way out is through. So what I mean by that is this: you have to come up with an escape plan.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot say that I'm leaving. You can't give them any, you have to pretend that everything is okay while you are making plans in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day you poof and disappear. That is the best way and the only way to get out, because if you pack up your stuff, there's an altercation. You're already being abused. What do you think is going to happen?
Right.
Right? For me, what I did was I found the 1-bedroom apartment. I didn't take anything when I left. One day he went to work, he came back, Antoinette was gone. Okay. I took my 2 kids and I left. And then I went to the courthouse and I was able to get the judge to allow 2 police officers to eventually take me back. And then when I went back, I just got clothing and stuff. I knew I had to start all over, but you have to plan that. But that is the only way.
Gotcha.
But you have to get out
Right. Right.
because it doesn't get better. It only gets worse. And every time it's, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And bam, it happens again. Some people do go and they get help because they truly see that they have a problem and they want help. But more often than not, that's not the case.
Right. Right.
And then when you leave, like I said, you have to really find a safe place, because if you stay at the same job, how many times do we hear an ex comes to a job and shoots a person in the parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And stuff like that, because if they're going to stalk you, people have issues and we never know how people are going to react to certain things. We don't know. So we have to safeguard ourselves.
Right.
But it's a process, and they have a lot of organizations out there that will come up with that escape plan and a safety plan and give you a safe place to stay. You have to reach out for the help that's out there, but you have to be serious.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You have to truly want out.
Right.
So when you get tired of being sick and tired, you'll start to move.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
like my mother used to tell me, the ride stops when you decide to get off.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
It's a decision.
I want to make one quick sidebar because it's killing me. I feel like if I don't make this mention, I'm losing opportunity, because I have an album that's staring right at me by the one Chatty O from the group Crew, and I know you were able to jump
Oh,
on their track.
once about the
I don't mean to go so crazy
like that.
left with it, talking something so serious. But I want to make a quick mention
I
because
remember that.
he has a new album out. By the way, everybody make sure to check it out. The one Chatty O. How was that experience for you, being able to jump on that track on the
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
the Dirty
Everything's
Dirty?
good and everything's fun, right?
Yeah,
That was Yogi. Yogi's in my first video.
yeah.
Yogi went on and he did a lot of stuff with Bad Boys.
Mm-hmm.
production wise, and he actually produced a song for me that didn't come out, and it's called something about a queen. I might still just drop it.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, no, the song is a really, really good song. But yeah, so no, that was a lot of fun. I remember that.
Yeah.
He's like, hit him in the head, boo. Word to Uncle Buck. Hey, yo, bring up your weight, make moves, state to state, no debate. Internet's been hot since 88, but niggas floss. I mean, who's the boss? Big Yoke had the stove. Now the Holocaust is mad drama, mad scammer, drinking Bahama Mamas, eating niggas up like Jeffrey Dahmer's.
Yo, do you still write like everyone? Like, do you ever pick up the pen and just write just to write?
I still write stuff because I can't help myself. So I mean, I journal stuff. I write poetry still. I write stuff. I can't help it. I have to.
You still sound great.
Yeah,
thank you. That's in my blood.
Same. It's crazy.
Still sound great.
So my voice is the same. A lot of
me,
people say that.
To me, you sound the same. Let me see. Wait. I know you just gave us a little taste. Can you give us a little taste of I got an attitude? Just a little bit.
Okay, let's see. I gotta remember the rhymes now. Orally, potent, lethal, but steady. Man, yo, battle stations, I'm ready. Code getting bigger, an idol-like figure. Play me if you want and make like a trigger. Squeeze off your best. You can huff and puff, but it's kiddie stuff because your best ain't good enough. Stand at attention, your body in line. This ain't your average rhyme. If it is, it ain't mine. Ducks, has-beens, I'ma show them all. I'm not a joker, but I laugh, cause y'all can't brawl. I roll the mic smokes, I lay it to rest. Embalmed in my palm, I touch it, and it's blessed. Got style, I know the routine. All punks pop and junk can't join my team. I got an attitude.
You sound exactly the same.
But that's a good thing because some people don't sound the same.
No, that's great. That's what I'm saying.
Right? Some people don't sound
crazy.
The same.
Wow. Thank you. Oh man,
yeah.
I feel like a little kid. I'm sorry. I don't mean
to be
so giddy.
It's like, yeah, you gotta be rhyming.
I know. I don't mean to be so giddy, but it's like, man.
One thing I did with Scratch before too. It was I'll say a little part of it.
Sure.
But it's gonna be cursing in there. I can curse.
That's all right. Yeah, absolutely.
It says, Antoinette is still the same. Nothing's changed. Phony bitches and dames get burnt to flames. The boss gets the thoughts across. Any heifer that talks shit, I make your jaw split. Murderous, solid off blocks to clear blocks, and gunshots will invoke fear and teardrops. Ears pop when the sound invades. I terminate more lives than AIDS and spit blades to keep hoes afraid. When the corpse is laid to rest, I separate your heart from chest and profess my tactics against mediocre rap tricks. I violate mad crews for kicks. You know my status from back in the day. I still blast trays to blow all MCs away. What? You never had no wins. Shit don't change. Phony rappers in this industry is all game.
Oh God, man.
Yeah, you ready? You ready to hit the scene again?
I mean,
I could do the rhymes. I mean, like I said, it's just I don't have time to waste and play games with people.
Right.
That's the biggest problem that I have. But like Gio called me like, yes, no, just drop the stuff ourselves. Just drop it. Just put it out there.
That's what I mean.
He's right. I think that I'm going to listen to him.
Yeah, listen.
We'll just put the stuff out there.
Just put it out there. I mean, what? Listen, like I say this all the time. I always quote DJ Jazzy Jeff because he said this one time, and it was like so simple, but like the most mind blowing thing to me. Like I loved it. He was just like, "Die empty," right? Meaning like, just whatever you have, put it out there. Whether you sell some or just give it out for free, whatever. But he was like, die empty. Why go to the grave with all of this stuff that you have, all this talent or whatever, and not letting the world
that's true
get to hear it or appreciate it, you know? And I'm like, man, do you know how crazy people will be to hear even 8 bars of you, something different, you know what I mean? Like, just to hear your what, like, listen, I'm going, like I said, I feel like I'm almost like, what do they call that now? Like fanboy or fanning out. But it's you gotta.
No, I mean, but you're right.
But you gotta remember.
I'm gonna listen to Gio.
You have to remember.
We're gonna just put some stuff out there, you know.
You have to remember.
Just drop it, even if I don't do anything, just to let it go, you know.
You know this well, like anybody else. You have to remember what it was for us in the 80s, late 80s, whatever, to be sitting by the radio listening to Kiss or BLS, and all of a sudden you hear something come on that you never heard before.
Yes, I know.
And so when we heard, that for the first time, it's like, you know what I mean? And then you got to remember, we're sitting there with a tape or with record and the pause button, waiting to hear something, and then going to school the next day. Like, yo, did you hear what Red Alert played? Or did you hear? So like, that listening to you now, like, that's what it brings me back to. Like, it gives me that feeling is what I'm trying to explain. So I'm just saying, it's like, you can't put a price on that. That's priceless. It's like, thank you for giving us that. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, made my night tonight.
thank you.
Man,
I probably won't even sleep, man. I mean, it's just,
No, I'm serious. And it's not, we're not just saying that because you're on here, whatever. I mean, when he told me, Antoinette, I was like, what? I was like, hell yeah. But yeah, no, thank you. Seriously, from both of us, we've taken up a lot of your time. We appreciate it. And thank you, man. And just keep being you. If you do decide to drop something out there, we'll be on the lookout for that. Is there anything else that you would like to let the people know? Whether it's, anything that you're working on, doing, where they can, because I know like you do a lot of speaking and stuff like that, let them know where they can reach you or find you, follow you.
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at _who's_the_boss_. I don't really do those reels and all that stuff yet. I haven't been doing all of that. I really haven't. My website is therealantoinette.com, and on there you can also order my book. And then if you're interested in having me speak or something, you can email bookings at Antoinette, bookingsforantoinette@gmail.com. And so those are ways that you can contact me. I think you can actually email from the website also, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Or you can just inbox me on Instagram.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I shut down Facebook, so it's like blocked. I used to have it open, but then I had some people just doing too much. So I stopped. I was like, I'm not doing this.
Do you get a lot of inquiries as far as doing anything like overseas?
Actually, I was getting some stuff for overseas, but I haven't been overseas.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just like my life right now is just not conducive to me traveling.
Mm-hmm.
To music and stuff, because I have so much other responsibilities. I would have to like take a leave from work in order to do it. And then, like I said, for me to do shows, if I'm not going to do it right, I'm just not going to do it. So I had to have dancers and stuff. So like even the show that I did, when I came back the first time, Red Alert was the host of the show.
Okay.
And he stopped me when it was over, and he was like, "You gave the people a show," because I guess in this day and age, people just come out and stand up and say their songs.
Yeah.
But I had dances and everything, because it's like, either you do it right or you don't.
Wow,
it's just what I know.
Dancers. Who has dancers?
So for me, it's a lot of rehearsing. It's a lot, it's a big deal.
Right.
Especially not being out for a long time. Mm-hmm. For me to come out, I want to do it. I would want to do it right.
Right.
I think I can speak for Uncle E. This has been one of the show's biggest highlights, is having you as a guest. We want to thank you, like I said, from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for everything you've done for the culture. And, just keep being you and spreading those positive and motivational messages throughout the world.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And last thing, I just want to throw one more other MC at you that I hold in a high regard. And I know you said people mention Rakim and compare you to this, but I want to add Kumo D to that equation.
Ooh, I love him.
Yeah.
Every year for his birthday,
I went back.
Call him and he called me for mine.
Really? I went back and I was listening. I was like, man, there's a lot, so I just want to that's another great artist that you're in that same space with. So have a great night.
I appreciate that. That's an honor also.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Man, listen. Let me have a great night. We'll be here for another 2 hours.
Okay.
And hopefully maybe we'll reconnect at some point. If you have anything else, maybe that's going on that you would like to speak about.
Okay.
All right.
Appreciate you.
You guys have a good night.
You too.
All right.
Appreciate you. Have a great one.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.